Hey everyone, Romeo here, a fellow Spanish language learner. In this video, I want to address whether or not you can become fluent in Spanish by reading. Why? Because just like there are people who are only watching and listening to Spanish shows with the hope that it will transfer into fluent speaking, there are others who are just reading books thinking the same thing, that reading somehow will transfer to speaking. So, let me clear something up because this gets misunderstood all the time. Reading in Spanish is good, but reading in Spanish does not make you fluent. And the fact that people still argue about this tells me expectations are completely out of alignment. Think about your native language. No adult says, I speak fluent English because I read a lot as a kid. What people actually say is, I have a larger vocabulary because I read. That distinction matters. Reading improves vocabulary and recognition, but fluency is about production. If reading alone worked the way people think it does, how would be done? This is just a portion of what I read last year. At least 30 minutes a night, dozens of short books, and that doesn't even include books with multiple stories or the readings inside Complete Spanish Step by Step and other grammar books I used. If reading alone made you fluent, I shouldn't be studying, but I am. So either reading doesn't work the way people think it does, or fluency requires something reading alone doesn't provide. It's the second one. Here's what reading actually did for me though. It made me a faster reader. It improved my ability to recognize sentence patterns. It expanded my passive vocabulary. Here's what it didn't do. It didn't give me fast recall. It didn't make grammar automatic, and it didn't make speaking effortlessly. And that gap matters. I'll give you a concrete example. I read Don Quixote, both parts, part one and part two, twice. I can explain the story. I understand what's happening. And if I see certain words written, I immediately know what they mean. But a word that I recognize when I read it does not mean I quickly recall the Spanish word when I want to say it out loud. That's the difference. Most people read in Spanish the same way they read in English, passively, for enjoyment, and then expect to turn that into speaking ability. That's the mistake. There's a big difference between reading for entertainment and reading as reinforcement for something you're already practicing. Reading helps after you've trained the structure. It reinforces what you already know. It doesn't install it. Only reading to learn Spanish is no different than only watching Spanish TV. Both feel productive, both increase recognition, but both are very slow if they're the only thing that you're doing. You might understand more, you might feel more comfortable, but comfort is not fluency. Fluency is being able to quickly assemble and say sentences when you need them. That ability does not come from passive exposure. What actually moved my Spanish forward wasn't more passive input. It was repeated interaction with the same grammar structures over and over across different contexts with forced recall. That's why I prefer workbooks. Not because they're exciting, because they're not, but because they force you to produce sentences, substitute vocabulary, and reuse the same structures until they're automatic. Once the structure is automatic, vocabulary becomes flexible. At that point, speaking speeds up. So no, I'm not saying you shouldn't read in Spanish. Reading is a natural and important part of learning a language. But if your entire plan is, I'll read Spanish and hope it turns into speaking, you're choosing the slowest possible path. Reading works best when it's layered on top of grammar study, sentence production, and deliberate repetition. Without that foundation, reading stays passive. Reading makes you a better reader, but fluency comes from doing something with the language, not just seeing it. That's the difference most people never get told. Anyway, I figured I wanted to share that with you all because I have a vested interest in seeing my audience move forward. If the message that I just gave resonated with you, make sure you give this video a like. If you disagree with my take, I want to hear why. Be sure to put that in the comment section. But either way, whether you agree or disagree, Until the next video, good luck on your journey towards building more usable, functional Spanish. Peace.